We have a real unique opportunity today to explore Stonington, Maine in the winter with no one else around. The last time I tried to do this cold water trip, I had to bail. I got 100 feet from shore and I had to call it. This time, let's see what happens. Let's go explore some islands. Well, we have absolutely amazing conditions today in Stonington, Maine. The winds are really light, the sea state is really calm. We're also just really protected here deep in the bay. In the summertime, this harbor as well as that boat launch are absolutely packed. Being the end of January, we have it to ourselves. Stonington is a bit of a sea kayaking location with kind of its own aura. There are more islands than I thought about counting, but it's not a small number of islands. There are a lot of islands out here, which create a lot of interest and a lot of protection and a lot of options for different times of the day. If the wind's coming from one area or one direction, you can get protection in another direction. At the edge of this archipelago is the also mythical Idaho. Our trip today, I'm planning on making my way out a few islands into the big main channel between Stonington and Idaho, and then turning around. Really just looking to see what I can get into, what we can find, what we can explore, what we can see. It started to snow rain, so I don't know how that's going to affect the camera lenses. After leaving the launch, I made my way to Scott Island and then over to Green Island. And I'm just passing along the northeast side of Green Island. And I see some pretty cool cliffs. What island is that going to be? Potato? It might be Potato. These are just 3 islands in a row, and the middle one's marked Potato. I'm sure locals have names for them. You're going to come here for the first time or alone, and make sure you get really good chart skills. Make sure you know how to navigate. There's a lot of things that if you can't easily translate them to what you're seeing on the chart, or you don't have ways to confirm where you are, or keep track of where you are, then it's easy to get turned around real quickly. And look, like I know there are cell phones and GPS units, and I have both actually with me in the boat. But my first line of defense against that, or my first point of attack, is to do it all manually. I've got a chart here in front of me. I took a bearing actually when I left to make sure I hit the island I wanted to hit. I mark down what island I get to. I write in a little notebook of what island I get to, so I know where I am, so I don't lose track of, was I on this one or this one? It's so easy to get turned around out here where there's so many islands. No easy way to see which way I'm facing. So just make sure you brush up on your chart skills and you can get yourself to where you need to be. I definitely bumped up against the inertia today of getting going and getting on this trip. That inertia from all the things that make kayaking in the winter tough. The cold, that bed was nice and warm today. I could have stayed in there for a lot longer. But getting up before the sun, getting things organized, getting out the door, a long drive. I think the winter is a time of rest, right? The earth is resting. Things are dormant, things aren't active. I feel that. Variety is definitely one of the draws out here. Everything from these larger cliff faces to enormous boulders that are perched along the shore and sandy beaches. So you get a lot of different variety of things you can see and explore. The variety of the islands. Oh, hello, loon. Hi, sweetheart. I think there are a couple. I might be seeing more loons in front of me. Yeah. Oh. If that isn't the sound of Maine, I don't know what is, with the lobster boat in the background. That's apropos. Maine Vibes. Misty, wet day, a loon calling, and a lobster boat hauling traps. Okay, that doesn't suck. Just taking a moment to get my bearings here and make sure I know where I am. I want to cross over a bit of water, and since these islands can all look alike, I just want to make sure I know what I'm pointing at. And I've got a red nun in front of me, red nun 4, in the middle of a channel. And behind that, I see St. Helena Island. And I would expect to see that based off of where I am with the island that I know is behind me. So I'm not going to bother taking a bearing here. I feel pretty confident with that navigation aid that that's where I am. Using the tools you have, whether it's compasses, protractors, or buoys in front of you to figure out where you are. I'm also I'm looking around to make sure it lines up with what I see. I see a ledge off to my right, and I can kind of see that ledge on the chart. And I'm seeing a smaller island off of St. Helena. Things are matching with what I'm seeing, so I feel confident that I know where I am. So we're going to cross over to St. Helena here. I've got my eyes on this lobster boat that is making its way towards me. And I'm just going to slow up and let him pass. I want him to know that he doesn't have to worry about me. And I imagine he sees me today. Sometimes I don't think they see you very well, but I imagine he sees me. He turned up when I stopped, so I think he sees me. But I'm going to let this lobster boat know that I'm not going to play chicken with it. These men and women are out here working, and we're here recreating in their workplace. And I'm sure it can be frustrating when they go down to the ramp and they've got work to do and they want to get home and see their families, or it's going to be a long day on the water and they need to get out and there are a slew of kayaks taking up spots. That's got to be frustrating. And then when we're on the water, them having to guess what we're doing. Are we paying attention? The reality is, if something happened to me out here, it's probably going to be that guy who comes and helps me. I've got my VHF radio, and I'd get on the radio and I'd send out a call, and it would probably be him or one of his friends coming out to get me. While the Coast Guard would definitely respond, they're, at least from this area, an hour or so away. Like, that's not going to be fast help. So it's really the fishermen who help. And trying to reciprocate by not being a pain in the ass for them. Just a quick check there as we were leaving St. Helena. Just making sure I know where I'm pointing to. I had it in my head that this island to my left was wreck, where I needed to continue my trip, but things weren't lining up in the environment. So a quick check on the chart, pulled the protractor out, gave myself a bearing from where I was, where I know I was, to where I wanted to be, and found the number and added some magnetic declination, and we are on our way to Wreck Island. There are 5 principles that the National Center for Cold Water Safety puts out that I honestly use all year long. Part of that's because I live in a part of Maine where the water is always considered dangerous, so it makes sense that I'm considering all those things every time I paddle. Just really briefly, they are 1, to wear a PFD, 2, to dress for the water temperature. The third one is to field test your gear. The fourth one is to swim test your gear. And the last one is to plan for the worst. You will never see me on this channel without a PFD on. You'll never see me kayaking outside of this channel without a PFD on. It's a must. And the reason it's important, particularly when we're cold water paddling, is your body loses the ability to function. Like, your muscles give up after a certain amount of time in the water, depending on how cold the water and what you're wearing and exposure. But you lose the ability to keep the part that the air is supposed to go into above water. And it's tragic, not to get too dark, but it's tragic every year in the fall in Maine in October, November, when someone's been at their camp all summer and they go out for one last canoe or kayak and they capsize and they find their boat, but they don't find them. And not that a PFD would have guaranteed their survival, but it would have added a lot more time onto their chances. The second principle is to dress for the water temperature. The layers I put on today. I have 2 layers of socks. Between those socks, I have foot warmers. I have 2 sets of pants on. One is heavily insulated. I have 3 layers on my top. I have winter hats and winter gloves for when I stop, or if I wanted to wear a winter hat now. I have a dry suit and pogies and neoprene gloves, which I don't like wearing, but I'll talk about that in a second. I have a storm hood, which is a neoprene hood that goes over my face and leaves a little bit out. I mentioned gloves and how I don't like wearing neoprene gloves. They limit my dexterity, and I found that out through field testing them. The third principle: get all of your stuff out that you're going to cold water paddle in and on your lawn or in your living room. Try to do all the things that you do in your boat. You know, the other things to do with gloves is, can you grab onto your deck line easily with your gloves? Can you grab onto your spray deck loop to pop your spray deck if you had to get out of your boat? All really important considerations when you're evaluating what you're going to take with you when you paddle. Then do all of that again, but in the water. Find a summer day, go out with some friends, stay somewhere shallow, and just try doing all the things in your boat. The fifth principle is to plan for the worst. I brought a stove with me today to heat some water up and maybe make some hot chocolate if my core temperature does drop. I have a chance to warm up and get some warm fluids in me. I also took with me my bothy bag, my emergency shelter, that it works better with a few people, but if someone is experiencing hypothermia, then get them in that thing with a couple other people or one other person, and your body heat warms that space up pretty quickly. I was going to take it out and show you on an island I stopped on, but it's bright orange and all the lobster boats were coming back, and I did not want any of them to think I was in trouble. So that's not something I didn't want to do that today. I didn't want to create a situation that someone felt like they had to come over to an island to see if I was okay. But it's in the boat and I'm ready to use it. And I've practiced using it. But anyway, those are the 5 golden rules of cold water paddling. I think they're really solid rules to think about all the time. And I hope you incorporate some of them, all of them, into your paddling, into your thinking about how you paddle. We made our turnaround point and we're gonna head back to Stonington. Been watching all the fishing boats make their way back to the harbor, so probably a good sign for me to head back too. It's getting pretty late in the day. Last summer, we did a 4-day trip out of Stonington and camped in these islands. And going around Isle Ho was on our list. Showed up at the launch, and there were, 15 kayakers also at the launch, just setting out for their trip because it was Labor Day weekend. And it didn't occur to me how crazy busy it would be. I don't know why it didn't occur to me, but it was kind of like, oh yeah. And the funny part of it is, like, we paddle in isolated areas in Maine. We could have chosen any number of trips and had just an amazing time and not seen anyone all weekend. But we chose to go to Stonington on Labor Day weekend. Lesson learned. So it's kind of fun being here in the winter and have this place to ourselves. Just waiting out some lobstermen. It's pretty shallow in here and they are moving. So we're just gonna let them pass and let their wake subside before we make our way back in. Okay, here we go. Lobster boats have passed. We're gonna make our way back. Got another one a pretty big distance back, but I'm gonna choose a route that they won't go through, just to get away from them a bit. Rain's picking up a little bit here as I make the last stretch into town. And I was thinking about the inertia that it took to overcome getting out here today, how much easier it would have been to stay in a warm, cozy bed as it's now raining and things are kind of raw. But I'm always glad when I do push through. I'm always glad when I make my way through my objections for doing something. And, you know, discomfort isn't a bad thing. We hide from discomfort, but discomfort is when we grow. Discomfort is when we experience things. Discomfort is when we have enough out of our comfort zone for something new or interesting to happen. I would have liked it to be less uncomfortable, but I guess we can't always pick that either. But I got to see something amazing, and I got to take you with me. Interesting to look to see what stops you from leaning in, from engaging. Found the red nun that marks the location of roughly where the town landing is. I just have my head on a swivel here. There's boats moving slowly as they're all coming in and finishing their day, and it's getting a little later. Visibility is getting down. So I'm just aware as I have picked my range using that red buoy to try to track a straight line across this and wrap the day up. Well, it was a gray day, that's for sure. The wind was down. I was hoping for a little more sun. The forecast had a bit more sun and a bit less snowy, slushy rain. But it doesn't stop me from coming out. I love it out here. So much to see in all different times, different moods. Today was a very moody day. Can't always be sunshine and roses. Winter is tough. In the summer, you throw a pair of flip-flops on, you head out, it's light, it's easy, it's breezy, but that is not the case in the winter. In the winter, you gotta work for it, and I was reminded today at how difficult winter sea kayaking is. But even though it's gray and it did that rain slushy thing and it's starting to do that rain slushy thing again, I'm glad I was able to show you Stonington in a time of year that there is no one here. We had this entire place to ourselves. It was pretty magical. So, because I'm losing light, because it's starting to do that rain slushy thing, I'm gonna head out. So until next time, safe paddling. All right, everybody, bye-bye.